All right, so we've got this incredible thought experiment someone sent us. It's a conversation between Dostoevsky and Nietzsche.
Okay.
And I gotta say, I'm a little intimidated to even jump into this.
Yeah, it's a real clash of the titans.
It is.
But I think that that's what makes it so fun, is that these thinkers, even in a fictional dialogue, really challenge us to confront some of life's biggest questions head on.
Absolutely.
So,
and they don't waste any time.
no,
Like, right out of the gate, Dostoevsky, he comes in swinging.
Yeah.
He's like, humanity is ungrateful. We don't appreciate life's simple gifts. And I'm like, whoa, okay, hold on a second. Ungrateful. Us.
Right.
What gifts are we even talking about here?
It's a provocative statement, that's for sure. And I think it gets to the core of Dostoevsky's worldview, right?
Okay.
Remember, he's coming from this place of deep faith, grappling with suffering.
Yeah.
The gifts he's talking about, probably the things we take for granted. Life itself, the potential for love, the beauty around us.
Yeah.
He's saying our negativity blinds us to the wonder that's already here.
Okay.
You know?
No, that's, I mean, for me, I think about how easy it is to get caught up in like the day-to-day grind.
Yeah.
And then you've got Nietzsche coming in
Oh, he comes.
with a swagger, right? Forget simple gifts. He's like, man is nothing but a being who must be surpassed.
Okay.
Like, whoa.
Yeah.
Cue the dramatic music.
Right.
We're just getting Übermensch. Right?
Exactly. And this is where it gets really interesting, right? Because the Übermensch, you know, people translate it as Superman. It's not about tights and capes.
Right.
But it's about transcending the limitations, right, that Dostoevsky sees us wrestling with.
Okay.
The Übermensch, the Superman, creates their own values, forges a path beyond good and evil as we traditionally think of it.
So it's like Dostoevsky saying we're potentially blind to these gifts. And then you've got Nietzsche saying, well, you're not even living up to your potential.
Exactly.
He's like, you're ungrateful for not embracing your inner Superman.
Yeah.
Now, I'm still working on leaping tall buildings in a single bound,
Right.
but I digress.
Of course.
But this whole idea of surpassing our limitations, does that contradict Dostoevsky's emphasis on the soul?
Yeah, that is the...
Like-
it's a crucial point of tension here.
Okay.
Because Dostoevsky might say that this Nietzschean will to power, this constant self-transcendence, it could actually pull us away from ourselves. That in trying to become more than human, we lose what makes us human.
That's a scary thought.
Yeah.
And it kind of takes us to how these guys see life, which from this conversation seems like completely different planets, right?
Yeah, totally.
Dostoevsky, the believer, he seems to embrace the mystery of it all. Life is beyond comprehension, he says. It's like he's saying, stop trying to solve it, just live it.
Yeah, and there's a certain beauty in that surrender, right?
Yeah.
Dostoevsky finds the solace in the unknowable, this kind of spiritual acceptance. He embraces the absurdity.
Right.
Life is a cosmic joke, he says, a fleeting dance on the edge of oblivion.
Right. You'd think that'd lead to despair, but not for him.
No. It's like he finds freedom in that meaninglessness.
Exactly.
It's like he's saying, hey, if there's no inherent purpose, we get to make our own.
Yeah, yeah.
So you've got Dostoevsky finding solace in mystery, and you've got Nietzsche finding freedom in meaninglessness.
It's really fascinating, isn't it?
It really is. And it makes you think, how do you approach life?
Yeah.
Because it really kind of speaks to how you move through the world, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and it leads us to another one of their clashes, which is on happiness.
Oh, yeah.
Which I'm guessing isn't going to be straightforward either.
No, not at all.
I'll be honest. When I think Dostoevsky, Nietzsche, happiness isn't really the first thing that comes to mind.
Right.
But they find a way to talk about even happiness, don't they? They do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and their approaches really highlight just the different ways that we as humans kind of seek and experience happiness. Dostoevsky, you know, with that yearning heart of his, he seems to almost see it as this elusive thing.
Okay.
This thing that's almost hidden, you
Yeah.
know? He talks about this longing, this constant search.
It's like he's saying, it's a butterfly.
Yeah.
If you chase it directly, it's just going to fly away. But if you like cultivate a garden where it feels welcome,
Okay.
it might just land on your shoulder.
Oh, I love that. That's such a beautiful image.
Yeah.
And it speaks to that spiritual dimension of his perspective.
Okay.
But then you have Nietzsche, who practically laughs at the whole idea.
Right.
Happiness, an invention, a delusion.
He's like, forget the butterfly garden. We're building an obstacle course.
Yeah. Exactly. He's all about the will to power, this relentless striving.
Yeah.
It's not about waiting for happiness to find you. It's about wrestling it from the jaws of life.
See, that's where Nietzsche gets a little scary to me.
Right.
Because it's like, is that fulfilling or does that just leave you perpetually on edge?
It's the question, right? It's like, is that truly fulfilling, all that striving?
You make me wonder, does true power come from, like, dominating our circumstances? Or defining what matters to us, even in the chaos? Are those two things mutually exclusive?
That's a good question.
I don't know.
It's a really good question.
It feels very Nietzschean to say they're not.
Right.
But I don't know.
Yeah.
Dostoevsky might offer a gentler path.
He might.
Right.
He might point to the innocent, that they have a certain inherent happiness.
Right.
Maybe it's the unadulterated joy of a child, or the quiet contentment of someone who's weathered all of life's storms and come out the other side. It's a stark contrast, though, to Nietzsche's approach.
It really is.
Yeah.
And this whole conversation, my brain's doing mental gymnastics. But before I get lost in a Dostoevskian labyrinth of thought here,
Okay.
I want to pivot to conviction for a second.
Okay.
Because it takes real conviction to kind of forge your own path.
That's true.
Whether you're embracing the mystery, like Dostoevsky,
Yeah.
or willing power into existence like Nietzsche,
Yeah.
it takes a lot of conviction.
It does, and it's fascinating how they both grapple with this idea of conviction
Yeah.
in a world that often seems determined to break us. Dostoevsky, he says, this is kind of a bleak observation, but he says, they cried at first, and then they used to get used to it. Man gets used to everything. What a vile creature.
Oh, that's heavy.
Yeah. But it speaks to the resilience of the human spirit, right?
Yeah.
But also this potential for apathy
Mm-hmm.
in the face of overwhelming suffering.
Yeah. And that's where Nietzsche, I imagine, would probably disagree.
Totally. He'd be like, that's not conviction, that's resignation.
Right.
Exactly. For him, conviction means actively engaging, demanding more.
So are we supposed to live in a perpetual state of discomfort then?
Well, how do we balance that? Accepting the world as it is versus striving to make it better.
Dostoevsky finds solace in his faith.
Yeah.
But where does someone turn when they don't have that?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It really is.
And it leads us perfectly into this last clash between Dostoevsky and Nietzsche.
Okay.
Their views on the mind versus the heart.
Okay.
Because you need both, right? To
Right.
walk that line.
It's like they say, the heart wants what it wants. But the mind always has opinions.
Right. Especially when you're dealing with minds like Dostoevsky and Nietzsche's.
Yeah, I mean, they practically built their careers on exploring this tension, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
And Dostoevsky, he sets us up with a line that feels very relatable, I think. He says, it is the mind that leads me, and that is what has lost me. Overthinking, overanalyzing how many souls have been lost in the labyrinth of their own minds. It's that feeling of being trapped in your own head.
Totally.
Right.
We've all been there.
Yes.
Stuck in that loop of what ifs and maybes.
And he seems to say that too much thinking can actually be paralyzing.
Yeah.
That sometimes you need to lead with your heart instead.
Okay. Interesting.
But then right. You'd think he'd be all about logic and analysis.
Right. You would think.
Because he's all about, like, will and reason.
Yeah.
But he acknowledges its limits, too.
He does.
He says the things that are most firmly rooted in the mind are often the most unbelievable.
So wait, is he saying don't trust your own thoughts? It's an interesting way to put it. I think what he's getting at is this idea that we can sometimes cling to beliefs that are comfortable or familiar, right? Even when they might not actually be true.
Yeah.
The mind is capable of amazing things, but also amazing self-deception. Right. And this ties back into his whole thing about living with blood, with authenticity.
Okay.
It's not just enough to think critically, you have to act on it. You have to live in a way that's congruent with your values, even when it's hard.
So it's like finding that balance between head and heart, because too much of one or the other, it's a recipe for disaster.
Exactly. It makes you think, though, maybe the overthinking that Dostoevsky's talked about, maybe that's actually what pushes us towards that authentic living that Nietzsche's talking about, you know?
That's interesting.
Maybe those mental labyrinths, all that doubt and questioning.
Yeah.
Maybe it's actually essential for self-discovery.
Yeah, because I think in their own ways, both of them are pushing us to engage more deeply with ourselves and the world around us, whether it's finding meaning in the mystery like Dostoevsky,
Right.
or forging your own values like Nietzsche.
Yeah,
They want us to live intentionally.
absolutely. And I think that's a great note to maybe bring this deep dive to a close on, right?
Okay.
We've gone through so much questions about humanity, happiness, conviction, this whole mind-heart connection.
Yeah.
And we've done it alongside these brilliant, challenging, sometimes frustrating thinkers.
Yeah, but frustrating in a good way.
The best way. The best way.
They don't give easy answers.
No.
They make you think for yourself.
And isn't that the mark of a good thinker, really?
It is. They leave you with more questions than you started with.
They really do. And who knows, maybe after listening to this, you'll go have your own philosophical showdown.
Right?
With a friend or a colleague.
Yeah.
Or even with yourself.
Yeah, because it's these conversations that might be messy and difficult, but they're always, always enriching.
They are. And for our listeners out there, thanks for sticking with us and keep those conversations going.
Keep them going.